Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Tesla's third quarter 2024 Q&A webcast. My name is Travis Axelrod, Head of Investor Relations, and I'm joined today by Elon Musk, Vaibhav Taneja, and a number of other executives. Our Q3 results were announced at about 3 p.m. Central Time in the update deck we published at the same link as this webcast. During this call, we will discuss our business outlook and make forward-looking statements. These comments are based on our predictions and expectations as of today. Actual events or results could differ materially due to a number of risks and uncertainties, including those mentioned in our most recent filings with the SEC. Before we jump into Q&A, Elon has some opening remarks.
So to recap, as someone seeing something that automotive industry are seeing year-over-year declines in order volumes in Q3, Tesla at the same time has achieved record deliveries. In fact, I think if you look at EV companies worldwide, to the best of my knowledge, no EV company is even profitable. To the best of my knowledge, there is no EV division of any existing auto company that is profitable. So it is notable that Tesla is profitable despite a very challenging automotive environment. And this quarter actually is a record Q3 for us. But we produced our 7th million vehicle actually just yesterday. So congratulations to the teams that made it happen at Tesla. That's a staggeringly immense amount of work to make 7 million cars. And we also have energy storage business is growing like wildfire with strong demand for both Megapack and Powerwall. And as people know, on October 10th, we laid out our vision for an autonomous and electric future that I think is very compelling. The Tesla team did a phenomenal job there with giving people an opportunity to experience the future where you have humanoid robots walking among the crowd, not with a canned video presentation or anything, but literally walking among the crowd, serving drinks and whatnot. And we had 50 autonomous vehicles. There were 20 Cybercabs, but there were an additional 30 Model Ys operating fully autonomously the entire night, carrying thousands of people with no incidents the entire night, with emphasizing that the Cybercab had no steering wheel or brake or accelerator pedals, meaning there was no way for anyone to intervene manually, even if they wanted to, and the whole night went very smoothly. Regarding the vehicle business, we are still on track to deliver more affordable models starting in the first half of 2025. I think probably people are wondering, well, what should they assume for vehicle sales growth next year? To take a bit of risk here, I do want to give some estimate, which is I think it's 20 to 30% vehicle growth next year, notwithstanding negative external events. Like if there's some force majeure events, like some big war breaks out or interest rates go sky high or something like that, then we can't overcome massive force majeure events. I think with our lower cost vehicles, with the advent of autonomy, something like a 20 to 30% growth next year is my best guess. And then Cybercab reaching volume production in 26. I do feel confident of Cybercab reaching volume production in 26, not just starting production, but reaching volume production in 26. That should be substantial growth. We're aiming for at least 2 million units a year of Cybercab. That'll be in more than one factory, but I think it's at least 2 million units a year, maybe 4 million ultimately. Yeah, these are just my best guesses, but if you ask me what my best guess is, those are my best guesses. The cell 4680 lines, the team is actually doing great work there. The 4680 is rapidly approaching the point where it is the most competitive cell. So when you consider the cost of a battery pack fully landed in the US, net of incentives and duties, the 4680 is tracking to be the most competitive, meaning lower cost per kilowatt hour fully considered than any other alternative. We're not quite there yet, but we're close to being there, which I think is extremely exciting. And we've got a lot of ideas to go well beyond that. If we execute well, the 4680 will have the internally produced cell will be the most cost competitive cell, certainly in North America. A testament to a tremendous amount of hard work there by the team. That said, we'll continue to buy a lot of cells from our competitors. Our intent is not to make cells just internally. So I don't want to set off any alarm bells here. We're obviously increasing substantially our vehicle output and our stationary storage output. So we need a lot of cells. And most of them will still come from suppliers. But I think it is some good news that the Tesla internal cell is tracking to be the most competitive in the US. With respect to autonomy, as people are experiencing in the cars, there are significant improvements in the miles between interventions. The new version 12.5, the release of Full Self-Driving and Cybertruck, combining the code into a single stack so that the city driving and the end-to-end highway driving are one stack, which is a big improvement for the highway driving. It's just all neural nets, and the release of actually Smart Summon. We try to have a sense of humor here at Tesla. That's 12.5. Version 13 is going out soon. We expect to see roughly a 5 or 6-fold improvement in miles between interventions compared to 12.5. Looking at the year as a whole, the improvement in miles between interventions, we think will be at least 3 orders of magnitude. That's a very dramatic improvement in the course of the year, and we expect that trend to continue next year. The current internal expectation for Tesla FSD having longer miles between interventions than human is the second quarter of next year, which means it may end up being the third quarter, but it's next. It seems extremely likely to be next year.
Miles between critical interventions, we already made a 100x improvement with 12.5 drive from starting of this year. And then with V13 release, we expect to be 1000x from the beginning, from January of this year on my production release software. And this came in because of technology improvements, going to end-to-end, having higher frame rate, partly also helped by hardware 4s, more capabilities. And we hope that we continue to scale the neural network, the data, the training compute, etc. By Q2 next year, we should cross over the average human miles per critical intervention, or like collision in that case.
That is just unvarnished our internal estimate.
Yes.
That's no sandbagging or anything else. Our internal estimate is Q2 of next year to be safer than human, and then to continue with rapid improvements thereafter. The vast majority of humanity has no idea that Teslas can drive themselves, especially for something like a Model 3 or Model Y. It looks like a normal car. You don't expect a normal car to be able to be intelligent enough to drive itself. The Cybercab looks different. Cybertruck looks different, but Model Y and Model 3 they're good-looking cars, but they look fairly normal. You don't expect a fairly normal-looking car to have the intelligence, enough AI to be able to drive itself. It does. So we do want to expose that to more people. Every time we have a significant improvement in the software, we'll roll out another sort of 30-day trial. So to encourage people to try it again. And we are seeing a significant improvement in adoption. The take rate for FSD is improved substantially, especially after the 1010 event. There's no need to wait for robotaxi or Cybercab to experience full autonomy. We expect to achieve that next year with our existing vehicle lineup.
For what it's worth, actually Smart Summon gives a small taste of what it's going to look like. The car able to drive itself within private parking lots. Currently it's speed limited, but then it's going to quickly be increased. And we already had more than 1 million usage attempts of Smart Summon.
Yep. For Tesla employees in the Bay Area, we're already offering a ride-hailing capability. So you can actually use with the development app, you can request a ride and it'll take you anywhere in the Bay Area. We do have a safety driver for now, but the software required to do that we've developed. And David, do you want to elaborate on that?
We showed some screenshots of this in the Q1 shareholder deck. Yeah, this is real. We've been testing it for the better part of the year, and the building blocks that we needed in order to build this functionality and deliver it to production, we've been thinking about and working on for years. It just so happens that we've used those building blocks to deliver great features for our customers in the meantime, such as sharing your profile, synchronizing it across cars, so that every single car that you jump into, whether it's another car that you own or a car that somebody's loaned to you or a rental car that you jump into, it looks exactly like yours. Everything's synchronized, seat mirror positions, media, navigation, everything is the same. Just what you would expect from one of our robotaxis. And we gave that functionality to our customers right now because we built it intending for it to be used in the future. And then cybersecurity that we knew we were going to need to deliver that functionality, sending a navigation to destination from your phone to the vehicle. You're doing that now with the ride-hailing app, but it's something that we've made available to customers for years. Seeing the progress on a route in the mobile app, that's something you'll need for the ride-hailing app. But again, we released it in the meantime. So it's not like we're just starting to think about this stuff right now while we're building out, the early stages of our ride-hailing network. We've been thinking about this for quite a long time, and we're excited to get the functionality out there.
We do expect to roll out ride-hailing in California and Texas next year to the public. Now, California is quite a long regulatory approval process. I think we should get approval next year, but it's contingent upon regulatory approval. Texas is a lot faster, so we'll definitely have it available in Texas and probably have it available in California subject to regulatory approval. And maybe some other states actually next year as well, but at least California and Texas. So I think that'll be very exciting. That's really a profound change. Tesla becomes more than a vehicle battery manufacturing company at that point. We published a Q3 vehicle safety report, which shows one crash for every 7 million miles of autopilot. That compares to the US average of one crash roughly every 700,000 miles. So it's currently showing a 10x safety improvement relative to the US average. And we continue to expand our AI training capacity to accommodate the needs of both FSD and Optimus. We're currently not training compute constrained. The FSD is actually getting so good that it takes us a while to actually find mistakes. And when you start getting to where it can take 10,000 miles to find a mistake, it takes a while to actually figure out, is this software build A better than software build B? It actually takes you a while to figure it out because neither one of them are making mistakes. That's actually the single biggest limiting factor is how long does it take us to figure out which version is better? So it's sort of a high-class problem. With Optimus, we showed a massive improvement in Optimus's dexterity and movement October 10th, and our next-gen hand and forearm, which has 22 degrees of freedom, which is double the prior hand and forearm, extremely human-like, much better tactile sensing. I feel confident saying that we have the most advanced humanoid robot by a long shot. the only company that really has all of the ingredients necessary to scale humanoid robots. What other companies are missing is that they're missing the AI brain, and they're missing the ability to really scale to very high volume production. You sometimes see some impressive video demos, but they lack the localized AI and the ability to scale volume to very high numbers. As I've said on a few occasions before, I think Optimus will ultimately has a good chance of being the most valuable product ever made. For the energy business, that's doing extremely well. The opportunity ahead is gigantic. The Lathrop Megapack factory reached 200 megapacks a week, which is now a 40 gigawatt hour a year run rate. We have a second factory in Shanghai that will begin with a 20 gigawatt hour a year run rate Q1 next year. That'll also scale up. It won't be long before we're shipping 100 gigawatt hours a year stationary storage. That'll ultimately grow, I think, to multiple terawatt hours per year. It has to actually, in order to have a sustainable energy future. If you're not at the terawatt scale, you're not really moving the needle. If you look at our admittedly very complicated last master plan, which I think actually has too much detail, maybe I'll ask Grok to analyze it and
shorten it up.
Give us the TLDR on the last master plan. We showed in that master plan that it is possible to take all of Earth to a fully sustainable energy situation using sustainable energy, power generation, and batteries and electric transport. And there are no fundamental material limitations. Like there's not some very rare material that we don't have enough of on Earth. We actually have enough of the raw materials to take all of human civilization, make it fully sustainable. And even if civilization dramatically increased its electricity usage, it would still be fully sustainable. One way to think of the progress of a civilization, this may sound a little esoteric, but is percentage completion of Kardashev scale. So Kardashev scale 1 would be you're using all the power of a planet. We're currently less than 1% on Kardashev level 1. Level 2 would be using all the power of the sun. And level 3, all the power of the galaxy. So we've got a long way to go. When you think in Kardashev terms, it becomes obvious that by far the biggest source of energy is the sun. Everything else is in the noise. So in conclusion, Tesla is focused on building the future of energy, transport, robotics, and AI. And this is a time when others are just focused on managing around near-term trends. We think what we're doing is the right approach. And if we execute on our objectives, and I think we will, my prediction is Tesla will become the most valuable company in the world, probably by a long shot. I want to thank the Tesla team once again for strong execution in a tough operating environment. And we're looking forward to building an incredibly exciting future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elon. And Bob has some opening remarks as well.
Our Q3 results were overall positive and once again demonstrate the scale to which business has evolved over the years with the generation of record operating cash flows of $6.3 billion. Our automotive revenues grew both quarter-on-quarter and year-on-year. While we had unit volume growth, we did experience a reduction in ASPs, primarily due to the impact of financing incentives. As a reminder, we are providing these incentives primarily using third-party banks and financial institutions and recognize the cost of these incentives as an upfront reduction to revenue. We released FSD for Cybertruck and other features like Actually Smart Summon, like Elon talked about, which contributed $326 million of revenues in the quarter. We continue to see elevated levels of regulatory credit sales with over $2 billion of revenues so far this year. To expand on this, at an industry level, China continues to outperform US and Europe by a factor of 3. If there is something to be learned from that, this gives a signal of what is to come in other regions. As customers' acceptance of EV grows, we feel that is the right strategy to build affordable and more compelling EV. Our focus remains on growing unit volume while avoiding a buildup of inventory. To support this strategy, we're continuing to offer extremely compelling vehicle financing options in every month. When you compare any vehicle in our lineup with other OEMs, our vehicles provide much better value, particularly when you consider the safety features, performance, and unparalleled software functionalities include also what Ashok had talked about around autonomy, music options, parental controls, and much more. While every vehicle in our lineup comes up with these capabilities, there is an awareness gap, not just with buyers, but at times even with existing owners. We plan on making these more visible in our interactions with both existing and future customers. Automotive margins improved quarter-over-quarter as a result of FSD feature release discussed before. Increase in our overall production and delivery volume, continued benefit from commodity pricing, and more localized deliveries in region, which resulted in lower freight and duties. Sustaining these margins in Q4, however, will be challenging given the current economic environment. Note that we are focused on the cost per vehicle, and there are numerous work streams within the company to squeeze out costs without compromising on customer experience.
Yeah, something that hopefully a helpful macro trend is if there's a decline in interest rates, this has massive effect on automotive demand. Vast majority of people, the demand is driven by can they afford the multiple payment. I think most likely we'll see continued decline in interest rates, which helps with affordability of vehicles.
That is one trend which we observed in the industry, that because of the affordability being impacted because of interest rates, people are holding on to the cars longer, especially in the US. And that is actually having an impact on the overall industry too. As we discussed in prior quarters, energy deployments fluctuate quarter over quarter due to customer readiness, location of orders being fulfilled, and not necessarily an indicator of demand or production within the quarter. While we did see a decline in Q3, we expect to grow deployments sequentially in Q4 to end the year with more than double of last year. Energy margins in Q3 were a record at more than 30%. This is a function of mix of projects being deployed in the quarter. Note that there will be fluctuation in margins as we manage through deployments and our inventory. Our pipeline and backlog continue to grow quarter over quarter as we fill our 2025 production slots, and we're doing our level best to keep up with the demand. Just coming back on automotive margins, I talked about what is happening. One other thing which I want to also share is we will continue to keep whatever we can to squeeze, like I said before, about squeezing out the cost. But this is something which we also are very capable of. I mean, just in Q3, we reached our lowest cost per vehicle. And that is a trend which we want to keep focus on. Then going on to service and other, we continue to show improvements in Q3. This was a result of better performance both in our service business, which includes collision, part sales, and merchandise, and continued growth in supercharging. These fleet-based revenues will continue to grow as the overall fleet size increases. Our operating expenses declined quarter over quarter and on a year-on-year basis. This is partially due to the restructuring we undertook in Q2. Cost saving from these initiatives were partially offset by increase in costs related to our AI efforts. We've started using the GPU cluster based out of our factory in Austin ahead of schedule and are on track to get 50K GPUs deployed in Texas by the end of this month. One thing which I'd like to elaborate is that we're being very judicious on our AI compute spend too, and saying how best we can utilize the existing infrastructure before making further investments. On the CapEx front, we had over $3.5 billion in the quarter. This was a sequential increase largely because of investments in AI compute. We now expect the CapEx for the year to be in excess of $11 billion. We shared our vision for the future at the We Robot event at the beginning of the month. The Tesla team is hyper-focused on delivering on that vision, and all efforts are underway to make it a reality. While we've achieved significant progress this year, it will take time to get this as we pioneer new and incredibly complex technologies and navigate a fragmented regulatory landscape. Future is incredibly bright, and I want to thank the Tesla team once again for all their help.
Great. Thank you very much, Vaibhav. Now we'll go to investor questions. The first one is Tesla still on track to deliver the more affordable model next year, as mentioned by Elon earlier? And how does it align with your AI and product roadmap?
Meet that in the first half of next year. Our mission has always been to lower the cost of our vehicles to increase the adoption of sustainable energy and transport. Part of that is lowering the cost of our current vehicles, which is where all of the personally owned vehicles that we sell today come in. But the next stage in that really, as it fits into AI roadmap, is when we bring in robotaxis, which lowers the initial cost of getting into an EV. And that's really where we see the marriage of EV roadmap and the AI roadmap.
It'll be with incentives sub 30K, which is kind of a...
Thank you very much. Similar question next. When can we expect Tesla to give us the $25,000 non-robotaxi regular car model?
We're not making it on.
Yeah, all our vehicles today are robotaxis.
I think we've made very clear that the future is autonomous. And I actually said this many years ago. My strong belief, and I believe that is panning out to be true, is that the future is autonomous electric vehicles. Non-autonomous gasoline vehicles in the future will be like riding a horse and using a flip phone. It's not that there are no horses. There are some horses, but they're unusual. They're niche. This is blindingly obvious at this point that is the future. A lot of automotive companies, or most automotive companies, have not internalized this, which is surprising. We've been shouting this from the rooftops for such a long time. It will accrue to their detriment in the future. All of our vehicles in the future will be autonomous.
Even today.
Yes, we've really made of the 7 million vehicles, the vast majority are capable of autonomy. We're currently making on the order of 35,000 autonomous vehicles a week. If you compare that to, say, Waymo's entire fleet, they have less than 1,000 cars. We make 35K a week.
Yeah, and our cars look normal.
Yeah, they mostly look normal. The Cybertruck looks abnormal. And then the Cybercab / robotaxi. We wanted to have something futuristic. That's not futuristic. It's worth noting with respect to the Cybercab, it's not just a revolution in vehicle design, but a revolution in vehicle manufacturing that is also coming with the Cybercab. The cycle time, like units per hour, the Cybercab line, this is just really something special. I mean, this is probably half order of magnitude better than other car manufacturing lines. Like not even the same league is what I'm saying. Not in the same league. Said like several years ago that maybe the hottest Tesla product to copy will be the factory. So you can't just like buy a factory.
Yeah, you can reverse engineer a factory. It's have to buy it.
Yeah, and we're rapidly evolving in manufacturing technology. So anyway, there's like basically I think having a regular 25K model is pointless.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
would be silly. Like it would be completely at odds with what we believe.
in an autonomous world, what matters is the lowest cost per mile of efficiency of that vehicle, and that's what we've done with the rope taxi.
Exactly. Autonomous, it's fully considered cost per mile is what matters. And if you try to make a car that is a hybrid manual automatic car, it's not going to be as good as a dedicated autonomous car. Yeah, Cybercab is not going to have steering wheels and pedals designed optimized for autonomy. It'll cost roughly 25K. So it is a 25K car. You won't be able to buy one on it exclusively if you want. Just won't have steering wheel and pedals if you don't need it.
Thank you very much. The next question is, what is Tesla doing to alleviate long wait times at service centers?
So we aim on solving problems at the source, so at the factory, before they can even affect our customers. We believe the best service is no service and don't even have them deal.
If the car doesn't break,
Yeah, exactly.
that's the best thing.
Don't see anyone with the Tesla shirt. You either do it remote,
Yeah.
fix the issue upstream, or do it remotely, do it through software. They can be at work or at home, and the car can be parked, and we address and fix the issue. And we've partnered the field with service to make sure we're looking at the same issues. And additionally, just in Q3 and Q4 of this year alone, we have opened and will open in total at nearly 70 locations. And in North America, we significantly expanded the size of each location and have doubled the size last year compared to this year.
Yeah, I think there's like actually a lot of merit to having large service centers because you can have specialization of labor. You can start to approach. Yeah, it should be more factory-like, where you can have dedicated lanes for particular types of service. And it's way easier for somebody to become expert in a few different types of repairs than in every repair.
Exactly. This has helped us with the base instead of these heavy repairs, like clogging up a lane. There's dedicated lanes for different type of repairs.
This is where Tesla's structure, I think, Tesla has a structural advantage relative to the rest of the auto industry because we make the cars and we service the cars. Whereas I think there's a bit of a conflict of interest with the dealer model. The dealerships make most of their money on service. And so they obviously are disincented to reduce the servicing cost.
Yeah.
Whereas in our case, we are incented to reduce the servicing cost because we carry that servicing cost. And we've got a good feedback loop with our cars.
The best.
Exactly. Like we review with the factory, with the service leaders together, and send people from the factories to the field and field to the factory to see it firsthand.
Exactly.
Provide suggestions for manufacturing as well as for engineering on design.
I view this as a fundamental structural advantage of Tesla versus the rest of the auto industry.
Also doing a bunch of work on the software side, not only to automate, diagnostics, so identifying, what needs to be done to a car before it comes into service, but also automating all of the preparation work and aligning all the resources that are necessary in order for the car to be very efficiently worked on once it arrives. So the parts are there, like the lift is scheduled, the technician's scheduled, like everything's ready
like
to go.
the car says, this is what's wrong with me, and tells the service center.
The car
Get everything ready in advance.
Yeah. Please fix me, and this is what's wrong.
Yeah, this is what I recommend you do now.
Instead of customer trying to translate, the car is telling us directly, and we're pulling that.
Yeah, you don't need, most of the time you don't need to diagnose the car
Exactly.
when it arrives. This is like, again,
You
a
prep the
fundamental technology advantage and structural advantage compared to the rest of the auto industry.
I think it's underappreciated as to what all we are able to do. And that's why most of our cars, except for Cybertruck, look the same.
They look better than other cars. but they're not like obviously like super futuristic.
Thank you very much. The next question is, please provide an update on the Semi. What will the next stage of growth look like, and when will FSD be ready?
Progressing swiftly on the build of the semi-factory in our Gigafactory in Reno. We've released all our major capital expenditures for that program, and we're on track to start pilot builds in the second half of next year, with production starting in the first half of 2026 and ramping really throughout the year to full production. Growth will largely depend on our customers' adoption of the product.
Well, I don't think we're going to be demand limited, honestly.
Yeah, which I was going to say, which is like a
At all.
no-brainer for the Semi, because it's really a commodity of total cost of ownership.
Yes, we have kind of ridiculous demand for the Semi.
In that world where it's about how much do I spend to move goods
exactly.
cents per mile, it's a no-brainer.
Fundamentally, if you've got a Semi semi where the fully considered cost per mile per ton of transport is better than, say, a diesel truck, any company that doesn't adopt an electric semi will lose. It's not a subjective thing. It's like, we want to have a beautiful semi truck, but frankly, if we made an ugly semi truck, it wouldn't matter.
And this is proving so in our fleets, in Pepsi's partner. In fact, Pepsi actually said last week their drivers don't want to go back.
As soon as we give anyone the electric semi, that's like the choice.
What they want to drive.
Yeah. That's like their top drivers. Well, they get to drive the Tesla semi. It's super fun to drive.
It's also very easy to drive.
It's easy to drive and it holds ass. Yeah. It's like fast.
Maybe too fast.
Like you've seen like the videos of where like Tesla electric semi like can go uphill, speeding past like the diesel truck.
Or even cars.
Yeah, even cars. Like it's responsive. You floor it and the truck actually moves.
And that's a benefit not only for the driver and for the goods, but also for safety in terms of other drivers on the road. You don't get stuck behind a semi. You're not a slow down situation in an on-ramp. I mean, how that plays into FSD, which is the second part of the question. All of the semis, a couple hundred we've deployed already, and ones that we'll be building next year and throughout the year have all of the hardware and the cameras necessary to deploy FSD. And we're currently training with that small fleet that we have. And as soon as the fleet is trained and the neural nets are up, we'll get FSD onto that platform.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a massive improvement in driver fatigue and driver safety, the anti-jackknifing software. You don't have to worry about your brakes overheating if you go down a steep hill because we use regenerative. That energy goes back into the pack. It's like radically better than a diesel semi. This is why the drivers love it.
Thank you very much. Our next question is, when will Tesla incorporate X and Grok in all of the Tesla vehicles?
I mean, these are relatively small fry things, you know. We'll keep expanding what is available in the car on the screen and also improving like the browser. So like just generally you can access anything you want in the car. In fact, for the Tesla, once you get to full autonomy, you actually want a system that can do anything. Like if you want to browse the internet, if you want to ask AI questions, if you want to watch a movie, if you want to play a video game, if you want to do some productivity thing, you can do anything you want in an autonomous vehicle because you don't need to drive. That's why the Cybercab's got a nice big screen and a great sound system. It's like being like in a
personal movie theater.
Yeah, personal movie theater. It's awesome.
Yeah, this is why we've been building this functionality, adding gaming to the car, adding movies and other, all sorts of different media applications to the car, because that's what you're gonna. The cars that we build today.
There's some really fun games, by the way. If people haven't tried it, there's like Castle Doombad and Polytopia and a bunch of really fun games in the car.
We're constantly looking at what features to add next, and we're paying attention to what's most commonly requested by our customers.
Yeah, play Castle Doombad. You won't regret it.
Thank you guys very much. The next question is, Elon mentioned unsupervised FSD in California and Texas next year. Does that mean regulators have agreed to it in the entire state for existing hardware 3 and 4 vehicles?
As I said earlier, California loves regulation. I mean, there's a pathway. Obviously, Waymo operates in California, so there's just a lot of forms to fill out and a lot of approvals that are required. I mean, I'd be shocked if we don't get approval next year, but it's just not something we totally control. But I think we will get approval next year in California and Texas. And towards the end of the year, it will branch out beyond California and Texas.
I mean, I think it's important to reiterate this. Homologating or certifying a vehicle at the federal level in the U.S. is done by meeting FMVSS regulations. All our vehicles today that are produced that are autonomous capable meet all those regulations. The Cybercab will meet those regulations. And so the deployment of the vehicle to the road is not a limitation. What is a limitation is what you said at the state level, where they control autonomous vehicle deployment. Some states are relatively easy, as you mentioned, for Texas.
Yeah.
And so other ones have pathways, like California, that may take a little longer. Other ones haven't set up anything yet. And so we will work through those state by state and get it.
I do think we should have a federal, autonomous vehicles should be approved. It should be possible to.
Congress, if you're listening, let's get a federal aid.
There should be a federal approval process for autonomous vehicles. That's how the FMVSS is
started and worked.
Federal motor vehicle. The FMVSS is federal.
In 2017 and 18, that's when regulators started looking at it, and it's really kind of stalled since then. But we would appreciate and would support helping out with those regulations.
It really needs to be like a national approval is important. If there's a Department of Government Efficiency, I'll try to help make that happen. And it's for everyone, not just Tesla.
Yes.
Like some things in the U.S. are state by state regulated, like, for example, insurance. It's incredibly painful to do it state by state, 50 states. I think there should be a national approval process for autonomy.
Thanks, guys. The next question is, what is the plan for 2025?
I mean, basically, we talked through this. There's a lot going on. Elon already mentioned that we're working on cheaper models to come out, work which the team is doing to get the factories ready today to try and make that happen.
Yeah, by the way, the amount of work required to make a lower cost car is insanely high. Like, it is harder to get like 20% of the cost out of a car than it is to design the car and build the entire factory in the first place. It's like excruciating. There's not a lot of movies made about the heroes who got 20% of the cost out of a car. But let me tell you, there should be. That is incredibly heroic.
It's the little changes. It's not like a silver.
Yeah, it's like there should be the heroes who got 20% of the cost out of a car. It's like, damn, I have a lot of respect for them.
We're talking
Movie. I think you probably could make a compelling movie, but if people actually saw how hard it was to do that, you'd be like, whoa, that's damn hard.
just yesterday we were talking about potting.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you're like literally, yeah. When I do call it sort of like getting cost out of things, it's kind of like, it's like Game of Pennies. It's like Game of Thrones, but pennies. First approximation, if you've got 10,000 items and each of them costs $4, then you have a $40,000 car. So then if you want to make a $35,000 car, you've got to get 50 cents on average out of the 10,000 items.
Every part.
Yeah. Obviously, the best is you delete some parts. In fact, we found we're able to delete a lot of parts. I'm very excited about the Cybercab. Rethinking the design of a car for the Cybercab, designing it for ultra-high volume production, and then designing a machine that builds the machine that I think is also revolutionary. And it's just, there's no other car company that's even trying to do what we're doing. I've even heard of it, actually. In fact, I'm certain there isn't one. I think our new machine that builds the machine, like it's designed to be like 5 times better than traditional factory. Cycle time,
Part deletion, material movement. I don't think any other car company has the same level of integration of thought that we have. When you design a part from a white sheet of paper, who's going to make it? Where is it going to be made? How's it going to be shipped? How's it going to be assembled into the vehicle? At any one point, if something is done in a silo, it becomes a bottleneck of either cost or time or efficiency. But with the robotaxi development, like we've done a good job on combining all that, blowing up how it's made and saying it should be made this way and rethinking it all so that it's the most efficient factory possible. That shows it will show in our CapEx efficiency when we deploy it. It shows in the number of parts, it shows in the simplicity of the vehicle, but also how it performs in terms of end user state.
Just on the energy front, also in 25, we will have started manufacturing at the Mega Factory Shanghai. We'll continue to increase our overall storage deployments with Powerwall 3. We plan to continue expanding our supercharging network, getting more OEMs on our network, 4680 cell ramp, that would keep going. And then we also will have our lithium refinery starting to produce. So there's a lot which is going on.
Yeah, so many things. The crazy thing is like Tesla's winning basically on almost every single thing we're doing. If we're not winning now, we're on track to win. Arenas where there are entire large companies, that's the only thing they do.
It's a company, there are multiple companies within the company.
Yeah, Tesla's like many companies that won.
Just a few more. What is going on with the Tesla Roadster?
Fun things.
Well, I just like to thank our long-suffering deposit holders of the Tesla Roadster. The reason it hasn't come out yet is because the Roadster is not just the icing on the cake; it's the cherry on the icing on the cake. And so our larger mission is to accelerate progress towards a sustainable energy future. Try to do things that maximize the probability that the future is good for humanity and for Earth. And so that necessarily means that things like that are kind of like dessert. We'd all love to work on the next-gen Tesla Roadster. It is super fun. And we are working on it, but it has to come behind the things that have a more serious impact on the good of the world. So just thank you to all our long-suffering Tesla Roadster deposit holders. And we are actually finally making progress on that. We're close to finalizing the design on that. It's really going to be something spectacular. A friend of mine, Peter Thiel, people think of Peter Thiel and I are rivals. We're really good friends. Peter was lamenting how the future doesn't have flying cars. Well, we'll see.
More to come.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Next one is quite similar to other questions we've had, so I might combine it with the final question. So briefly, could you just detail how Robotaxi will roll out? Will it start with a Tesla deployed fleet and then allow customers to add theirs on like a subscription model? And then will Hardware 3 be capable of level 5 FSD?
Hardware 3, what we saw with 12.5 was it was easier to make rapid progress with starting with Hardware 4. And figuring out the solution and then backporting it to Hardware 3 instead of directly working on Hardware 3, given that Hardware 4 has more like fundamental hardware capabilities. I think that trend will continue into the next few quarters as well, where we first figure out the solution rapidly with AI4 and then backport it, write the kernels. It just takes longer to develop those things because it's not fundamentally supported in the hardware and it's emulated. But yeah, initially working on Hardware 4, backporting it to Hardware 3.
The answer is we're not 100% sure. By some measures, Hardware 4 has several times the capability of Hardware 3. It's easier to get things to work with Hardware 4 and then takes a lot of effort to sort of squeeze that functionality into Hardware 3. There is some chance Hardware 3 does not achieve the safety level that allows for unsupervised FSD. So there is some chance of that. If that turns out to be the case, we will upgrade those who have bought Hardware 3 FSD for free. And we have designed the system to be upgradable, just sort of switch out the computer type of thing. The cameras are capable, but we don't actually know the answer to that. But if it does turn out, we'll make sure we take care of those who have bought FSD on Hardware 3.
In the last few minutes that we have left, we will try to get in some analyst questions. First question will be coming from Pierre Farragut at New Street.
I was wondering about the compute you're ramping up. So you gave like interesting statistics on how much you have, and you said you don't feel your compute constrained. And I was wondering, how you are putting to work this additional compute. Is that a game for you of creating like larger and larger models, like next generation of models that are larger, the way OpenAI go from GPT-3 to GPT-4? Or is that more like you're set on your model and you need to throw more and more compute to accelerate the pace of learning to improve reliability? And then I had a quick follow-up real quick on your rollout in Texas and in California next year. The plan as you see it today, is it to roll out a fleet or two with cars that will start with like a supervisory, like some onboard supervision, someone sitting at the wheel just in case, and removing the supervisors progressively? Or are you aiming for going fully fledged without even a human supervisor when you get started?
First part of the question, the nature of real-world AI is different from, say, an LLM in that you have a massive amount of context. You've got case of Tesla 7 or 8, up to 9 if you include the internal camera. You've got gigabytes of context that is then distilled down into a small number of control outputs. Whereas it's like it's very rare to have, I'm not sure any LLM out there can do gigabytes of context. And then you've got to then process that in the car with a very small amount of compute power. It's all doable and it's happening, but it is a different problem than what, say, a Gemini or an OpenAI is doing. Part of the way you can make up for the fact that the inference computer is quite small is by spending a lot of effort on training. Just like a human, the more you train on something, the less mental workload it takes when you do it. Like the first time like a human starts driving, it absorbs your whole mind. But then as you train more and more on driving, get very good, the driving becomes a background task. It only absorbs a small amount of your mental capacity because you have a lot of training. We can make up for the fact that the inference computer is tiny compared to a 10 kilowatt bank of GPUs. We've got a few hundred watts of inference compute. We can make up for that with heavy training. Then there's also vast amounts of the actual petabytes of data coming in are tremendous. And then sorting out what training is important of the vast amounts of video data coming in from the fleet. What is actually most important for training? As I said, we're not currently training compute constrained.
Like you mentioned, the training helps both train larger models, also like train quicker. But in the end, we still got to pick which models are performing better. So the validation effort to picking the models pretty large. We have to drive a lot of miles to know in closed loop. We do have simulation and other ways to get those metrics. Those two help. But in the end, that's a big bottleneck. Yeah, that's why we're not training compute constraint alone. And there's other axis of scaling as well, which is like data, figuring out which data is more useful. That is an important task, and we're focusing on that.
So as it relates to the second part of your question, Pierre, about safety drivers and rolling it out, each state has different requirements that, in terms of how many miles and how much time you need to have a safety driver and not have a safety driver. We're going to follow all those. We're not going to violate whatever regulations are out there. But safety is a priority. When we're ready and safety is there, we'll remove all the drivers from the rideshare program.
We think that we'll be able to have driverless Teslas doing paid rides next year, sometime next year.
Thank you. And our next question comes from Adam Jonas at Morgan Stanley.
Just had a question about the relationship between Tesla and xAI. Many investors are still not clear how the work at xAI is truly beneficial to Tesla. Some even take the view that the two companies may even be in competition with each other in terms of talent and tech and even your time, Elon. So what's your message to investors on that relationship between Tesla and xAI, and where do you see it going over time? Thanks.
I should say that xAI has been helpful to Tesla AI quite a few times. Things like scaling up, like training. Recently, in the last week or so, improvements in fault-tolerant training, where if you're doing a big training run and a node fails, being able to continue training and easily recover from on a training run, xAI has been pretty helpful. But there are different problems. xAI is working on artificial general intelligence or artificial superintelligence. Tesla is trying to make autonomous cars and autonomous robots. They're different problems.
I think we've said this before also, like not all AI is equal. AI is a broad spectrum.
Yeah.
And we have our own swim lanes. Yes, there are certain things which we can collaborate on if needed, but for the most part, we're solving different issues.
Yeah, Tesla's focused on real-world AI. It is quite a bit different from an LLM. You have massive context in the form of video and some amount of audio that's got to be distilled with extremely efficient inference compute. I do think Tesla is the most efficient in the world in terms of inference compute, because out of necessity, we have to be very good at efficient inference. We can't put 10 kilowatts of GPUs in a car. We've got a couple hundred watts. It's a pretty well-designed Tesla AI chip, but it's still a couple hundred watts. But there are different problems. It's the stuff that xAI does, when it's running inference, it is running inference, answering questions, it's answering Tesla questions on a 10 kilowatt rack. Can't put that in a car. It's a different problem.
Please no.
xAI is because I felt there wasn't a truth-seeking digital superintelligence company out there. That's what it came down to. That there needed to be an AI company that is just very rigorous about being truthful. And so I'm not saying xAI is perfect, but that is that is at least the explicit aspiration. Even if something is politically incorrect, it should still be truthful. I think this is very important for AI safety. Anyway, I think xAI has been helpful to Tesla and will continue to be helpful to Tesla, but there are very different problems. What other car company has a world-class chip design team? Zero. What other car company has a world-class AI team like Tesla does? Zero. Those were all startups. They were created from scratch.
Thank you, Elon. And I think that's unfortunately all the time that we have for today. We appreciate all of your questions and we look forward to your next quarter. Thank you very much and goodbye.